How's it going, everyone? The PlayStation Store has kicked off a massive Essential Pick sale. A lot of great deals across the board as a part of these sales, and I want to highlight some deals under the price of $10 in this video. There's Essential Picks, there's games under 20. You guys know how this game works. Let's get right into it. Got about 10 games to go over. First of all, let's start off with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, which is 70% off for $8.99. It is available on PlayStation Plus Extra as well, so you can play it that way if you still are rocking with the extra subscription. But Assassin's Creed Syndicate is a really solid game. It was actually broken on PlayStation 5 for quite a while, but thankfully it has been fixed. I think it was fixed late last year, so Syndicate is now fully playable on PS5. It's not upgraded on PS5, it's still 30 frames per second. It's just it had a visual bug that was game-breaking on PlayStation 5 while trying to play Syndicate. Syndicate itself is a really solid game. I feel like this game's undoing was the fact that it released a year after Assassin's Creed Unity. Assassin's Creed Unity was kind of universally, I don't want to say universally hated upon, because actually at this point, like, I feel like people retrospectively look back at that game kind of fondly. It was just so buggy, glitchy, and kind of a mess. Syndicate, I thought the main characters were likable. I thought the open world was really fun to explore, and overall it's that classic Assassin's Creed gameplay that you guys know that I love. Personally, these games are right up my alley. They've got a bunch of other AC titles on sale right now, so you know, you can pick up a wide variety of stuff, but Syndicate's the one that I wanted to point out because this is the game that kind of faltered commercially and what pivoted Ubisoft into going the Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla route of their Assassin's Creed titles. Moving on from that, we have Borderlands, the Handsome Collection, 75% off for $9.99. I love me some classic Borderlands. Borderlands 2, in my opinion, is the best game in the entire franchise. I just think it's a really well-made game. I think the comedy clicks in this game, which I feel like with Borderlands 3 and with Tiny Tina's Wonderlands especially, they really fell off in that regard, but Borderlands 2, I think, is really well done from a dialogue writing standpoint. Gameplay is great, a lot of replayability with the various characters. You get the DLC content as well, the majority of it with Borderlands 2. You also got Borderlands the pre-sequel, which is a lot more of the same, but it works. So, pre-sequel is a decent game on top of that, and don't worry about playing the game solo. Like, I think Borderlands is fine solo. I completed the game cooperatively, I completed the game solo, and yeah, sure, it's fun with friends, and if you have a couple buddies that are gonna pick it up, go for it. Play the game co-op, but if you want to play it solo, that is an option as well, so definitely give that a recommendation at $9.99. Next up, we have Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown, 84% off for $9.59. A very underrated franchise. The case with Ace Combat 7 is it kind of had a very unfortunate release timing. It came out back in January 2019, and I want to say it was like right before or right after both Kingdom Hearts 3 and the Resident Evil 2 remake came out. Yeah, why late Januaries are always stacked? Don't ask me, because it's stacked next year too. But Ace Combat 7, I mean, it turned out to do pretty well even with that competition, and the game itself is great. Awesome action flight gameplay, and I feel like, you know, we talk about great soundtracks on this channel and great soundtracks in general. Ace Combat does not get the love it deserves for having fantastic soundtrack. Like, the soundtrack in Ace Combat, I feel like, is a banger, and if you're into action flight titles, you're gonna enjoy this. I guess action flight really isn't a genre, but if you like action games that are over the top, Ace Combat's gonna be right up your alley. Narratively, Ace Combat doesn't click with me, but, you know, I'm in this for the gameplay and the great music, and Ace Combat 7 hits home with me in that regard. Next up, we have Prototype 2, 85% off for $5.99. Now, my fondest memory of Prototype was leading into June of 2009 and the summer of 2009 in general, where there was like a legit flame war between Prototype 1 and Infamous 1 on which was going to be the better superhero open world game. I think part of that was because like the fanboy wars were at a pinnacle at that point, and Prototype was a multi-platform game and Infamous was an exclusive. Yes, quite a time machine there. Prototype ended up being pretty good, but Infamous was the better game. Prototype 2 I thought was really solid. You have a different main character, and what I think Prototype does really well is really does a good job of making you feel like an overpowered superhero with a bunch of abilities. Like, Prototype is absolutely chaotic and an absolute joy to play from a gameplay standpoint. Does it have its shortcomings? Sure. The visuals are not anything to write home about, to be perfectly honest. I remember when Prototype 1 and 2 came out, I was like, man, this looks like a pretty good looking PS2 game. Like, that's what I thought personally. Maybe that's a little bit harsh, but you know, it is what it is. For $6, Prototype 2 is a good buy. If you want an over-the-top action superhero title, like, you're gonna find it here. And I think when it comes to, you know, superhero games, if you want to call this a superhero game, that's kind of what you want. You want to feel like an overpowered superhero, and Prototype 2 does a pretty good job of making you feel that way. Next up, we have Risk of Rain 2, 75% off for $6.24. Now, this is a game that has an awesome art style and a great gameplay loop, but albeit, the gameplay loop for me got pretty frustrating. Like, I remember downloading this game when it got into early access on Steam and PC, and downloading the game, playing it for a little bit, and then just uninstalling the game because I got so frustrated. But at the same time, that uninstallation lasted for like 30 minutes because I was like, all right, I'm ready to get back in. The game is incredibly addicting, and it's incredibly rewarding to play through with the various abilities you can utilize. The gameplay loop is just very enjoyable to go through, and if you do have friends to play with, it does have online co-op play, so that is an option you can take part in, and the co-op is great, so if you do want to play that way, that is an option. But you can play it solo as well and have a good time that way. $6.24 is a great buy. Get some friends to pick it up, and you'll have an awesome time with that. Next up, Metro Exodus Gold Edition, 80% off for $7.99. I liked Metro Exodus. Did I like it as much as Metro 2033 and Last Light? Personally, no, and I don't know if that's a bit of a hot take. From a technical standpoint, obviously, Exodus is a remarkable game, and the PlayStation 5 upgrade really showcases that once again. It is a atmospheric first-person shooter that is very narrative-heavy. I would recommend you to play 2033 and Last Light. Some of the gameplay aspects and design choices didn't hit home with me, but overall, it's still a solid game, and the fact is, you're paying $7.99 for this game. Like, that's a disgustingly good deal, given that you get the base game, you get the DLC. That is a great pickup, especially if you're playing it on PlayStation 5. You guys are going to have a great time with that. Next up, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. Another game with a great art style. This came out back in 2010 on PlayStation 3, done by Level 5, who are pretty quiet these days as far as game releases here, stateside especially, but they did a great job with Ni no Kuni as a JRPG, a very accessible JRPG, and I think one that's actually fairly good if you're looking to get into the genre. Very much has that Studio Ghibli aesthetic that I think a lot of people are really gonna dig. For $9.99, this is a great JRPG with some charming characters, likable characters as well, and definitely a solid pickup if you're looking to get into the genre or just expand your JRPG repertoire. Next up, Katherine Full Body Edition, 80% off for $7.99. I believe this is by far the cheapest this game has been. My real issue with Katherine Full Body Edition was initially the price point, $50. And I had an issue with Catherine's price point back when it came out, I think in 2012. It is a game that is replayable with different decisions to be made, and you do have a new route that's added with the Full Body Edition, with the addition of another character. Catherine's a really quirky puzzle game that is incredibly wacky and zany at times. The puzzle gameplay I wasn't in love with. I thought it was fine, but the storytelling, the characters, that's the aspect you're getting into the game for. I also think if this is a game that you play in front of like your significant other or something like that, they'll get into the game even if they're not into gaming. Like, you get into this game for the storytelling, and it's something that I feel like the wackiness can really bring people into it. That's just my 2 cents. A bunch of different endings and things like that, so there is definitely replayability. It's not going to be for everyone. I think the wackiness is going to be like a little bit off-putting for some people, but overall, I thought the game was really enjoyable. Art style's great. Soundtrack's pretty good as well, and one of the more quirky games that you're going to find. $8 for Full Body Edition, I think, is a really good pickup, so check that out. Next up, we have Yakuza Zero, 70% off for $5.99. I mean, it's Yakuza Zero. At this point, I've talked about this game ad nauseum. Anybody that's a fan of RGG games has talked about this game ad nauseum. It's a fantastic action beat-em-up title. However you want to describe the RGG games, they're great. In my opinion, Judgment is the best game they've put out, and I do like the fact that Judgment has English voice acting, even though some of you guys are going to be like, blasphemy, playing an RGG game with English voice acting. Look, some people just don't want to read subtitles, and I can definitely understand that, but Yakuza Zero's voice acting is great. It's just like, you know, it's subtitled. It is what it is. Soundtrack is awesome. Characters are great. Kiryu, of course, making a comeback in Infinite Wealth, so might be a good idea to get familiar with this story. But if you're excited for Infinite Wealth, let's be real, you've probably played Yakuza Zero, so you don't even have to think about it from that regard. Yes, Yakuza as a franchise is pretty daunting to get into with all the games that are available from Zero, Kiwami 1, Kiwami 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Like a Dragon Ishin, you've got The Man Who Erased His Name coming out, you have Like a Dragon, you have Infinite Wealth coming out. Like, there's so many games, and people want to play Judgment and Lost Judgment as well. If you want to get into RGG games, they're a heavy undertaking, especially if you want to do everything. Look, if you rush through the main stories of the games, you can beat them somewhat quickly, but if you're trying to do all the content, you're trying to take your time with it, they are vast experiences. And what I highly recommend you not to do is not play the Yakuza games back to back. Like, playing them sequentially right away. What I'm saying is play Zero, maybe play Kiwami, take a break for a while, because you're gonna burn yourself out trying to go through the entire Yakuza franchise back to back. That's just my opinion. If you disagree, more power to you. If you can manage to pull that off, I'm envious of you. These games are great, but you can get burned out from them just because of the expansive nature of them and how many games there are out there. It's almost like, you know, could you imagine playing the Legend of Heroes games back to back? Like, that would be a wild undertaking. So play Zero, take it for what it is. You're gonna get a great experience out of it, and play Kiwami as well. Those are the two titles. If you want to get into Yakuza, I would recommend to play the first and focus on those. Don't worry about the other games right now. Lastly, I do want to note Tales of Berseria, 50% off for $9.99. Great deal for Tales of Berseria, an awesome Tales of Game of franchise that I talk about ad nauseum as well. You know, the franchise is just super consistent, and Berseria has one of the more compelling main characters out of any JRPG in Velvet. She's got a dark backstory, and characters are pretty good, but Velvet's really the star of the show as far as the character roster goes, and overall the story's pretty good. Lengthier game, but not crazy lengthy in the standards of JRPGs that you see regularly. Very good game, $9.99, definitely a great buy. Great soundtrack on this one as well. But that'll do it for me. Again, a lot of great PlayStation game deals under the price of $10 as a part of all the sales running right now. As always, there's going to be more sales coming, so don't fret if you don't pick anything up. But that'll do it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.